Hello, and welcome to the DM's Book Club, a weekly book club podcast talking about some Dungeons and Dragons, or thereabouts, and how we would include it and improve it for our role-playing campaigns. With me, I have a brand new guest to the Zoom room of DM's Book Club. A brand new guest. Please tell us who you are and what do you do?
Hello. Hi, Fiona. Hi, audience. My name is Khalil Thurlaway. My pronouns are he, him, and I am a science communicator, TTRPG performer, occasional game designer, and all-round enthusiastic nerd.
Oh, and all-round good person as well. I really love you, Khalil. Because I'm on RP Geeks, and I know you've been on Science and Sorcery, and so together it feels like we've all been dancing around each other. And I'm like, I must talk to Khalil at some point about D&D. And here I've got you in. We're going to very excited for it. I've done it. You're here.
Locked in. Okay, ready for an 8-hour podcast.
Oh my word! What? Oh no! I'm not stuck in here with you. You're stuck in here with me. That's what we're doing, right? Oh god!
As a little caveat and a peek behind the curtain for the audience, as we're recording this in my time zone, it's Friday evening, and my ADHD meds are slightly starting to wear off. So if my focus starts to wander, that might be why.
Very good, very good. I like the sort of lead into this. But before we begin, Khalil, I'd love to know, and I'm sure the audience would love to know, how did you get into TTRPGs? What's your origin story, my friend?
Okay, so I was actually a late comer to just playing tabletop role-playing games, but it was kind of a natural culmination of several of my other loves. I've always loved role-playing video games. So when I was a kid, I sunk an ungodly number of hours into Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, which meant that I knew the mechanics of second edition D&D.
Wow, you were cool. You were a cool kid before you were cool.
Thaco, baby. And I was big into Warhammer as a kid as well. It's that kind of like wargaming side of things. I love storytelling and performing. So it was kind of inevitable that it was going to happen at some point. It's honestly a miracle that I waited until I was in my mid-20s to get into it. So I've been playing them for, just over a decade now. And even actually for a couple of years before I started playing, I started watching some of the big D&D actual plays. So obviously your Critical Roles, your Dimension 20s, your NAD pods. And around that time, my best friend bought the 5e starter set. And he tried his hand at DMing. It wasn't really for him. He didn't really gel with it. So he handed the reins over to me, and I started GMing for our group of friends. So that's kind of how I got into the D&D side of things. But then as my tastes have developed, both in terms of consuming actual play media and playing games at home, and also starting to perform and play games online, I've been playing less and less D&D.
Yeah.
Which is nice. I've really been enjoying Blades in the Dark.
Love Blades in the Dark, yeah.
We're playing in a great home game with that at the moment. And lots of kind of little one-shotty type games, like Make You Fish in Interesting Times and stuff like that. And in terms of consuming AP media as well, it is Dungeons and Dragons, but there's a channel called Dungeons and Drimbus, a podcast. And I find their campaigns variable in how much I gel with them, but the first one I listened to, I think is incredible. It's called The Hunt for the Florida Man. And it's exactly what you're thinking.
Yep.
A magical hunt for a magical man. And like Neo Scum, who play a kind of wacky, surreal version of Shadowrun. And they're now doing, the same people are now making Gutter, which is a kind of surreal, slightly wacky Cthulhu. The mechanics of Call of Cthulhu, but like not in that world, in their own kind of weird Pacific Northwesty type world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really enjoying both making and consuming a nice wide variety of story styles and game mechanics and cast combinations and stuff. I love it.
Is there a particular genre that you like? Obviously, like I too started with D&D as well. Is there a genre that you pull towards either as a player or as a GM, or are you at the moment you like trying out to try different things? Because May You Fish in Interesting Times is a great little game, but it's again, I say indie. That's not a bad thing. It's just like it's not one that I would recommend if someone was into D&D.
I think for me that the secret sauce is the system. It's because it's the type of play that it elicits in people. So, for example, I've really been enjoying Blades in the Dark because, yes, you get to roll dice and you get to, level up and things like that. So, you get that dopamine hit of that from a traditional role-playing side. But then because it's so much based on, flashbacks and kind of developing the story kind of as it goes. Mm-hmm. So, like, you don't bring a loadout on a mission. You decide, okay, I'm going to carry a lot of stuff, a medium amount of stuff, or a small amount of stuff. And then what that is emerges through storytelling.
Yeah.
That, and I really love prompt card games. So, like May You Fish or Quiet Place, where there are conversation prompts that come up. And then it's kind of little chats that flesh out the world and the story bit by bit.
Yeah.
I think with the right group of players, that is...
Yeah, I agree with you so much on story prompt games. I actually watched your game of... I'm going to say the title wrong because I always say it differently, but it's The Time We Have Left, the zombie.
The Time We Have, yes.
The Time We Have Left. That's me adding my own little bit into it. But the idea of a zombie game, but playing, in person, but you played it online, and those prompts where you develop the story. I love that sort of stuff. My copy is hopefully coming today because I want to play it so hard, like the physical copy, because it seems such an interesting concept of like being two people but separated by physical space. Obviously, a lot of our games are like that.
I've actually played The Time We Have twice now.
Oh.
So the first time was on that recording, which was online, and I was the person on the inside of the door. And then the second time was in person, and I was the person on the outside of the door.
Oh,
so
wow.
I've experienced it in kind of all of the quadrant of permutations. So for listeners who might not be familiar with The Time We Have is a duo game, 2 players, and you play 2 siblings. And you're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. One of you has been bitten and they are locked in a room. And the other one is on the outside of the locked door. And through drawing cards, you have conversation prompts or roleplay prompts that build up through your conversations, your backstory as siblings, how you have dealt with the ups and downs of survival and how you view the future and things like that. And then at the end of the game, the player on the outside, the sibling, the healthy sibling, has to decide whether or not to unlock the door.
Ooh.
Which is always a really fun route there. And then the decision is completely up to you.
I love that. I've recently played, there's a game called Tackle Box, which is, again, it's another duo game where you and one other person are in a fishing boat and your name's, this is where I get the wrong, I think it's Robin and Hunter, and you're always fishing. And you decide on who you are to each other and like what happened just before you got on the boat, and then you use cards to prompt what happens next or what is it. And it's a surreal fishing game in the sense of like you put it out and you might be in a simulation and you're just running through the video game, or you are a Belgian detective who's undercover to see what the other person is up to. And the idea is that you do 3 prompts each and then you go, shall we continue? And I just like that. So it's just a nice slow game, but it can get you into some really surreal places. And I love games like that where you can't predict necessarily where you go, but it seems so easy and flexible so that if you did get a card, you're like, not this one, and you could try again. And the joy it brings in that terms of improvisation, as someone like myself is big into the improvisation, I love having very light rules to then just help me jump off and see where we go. And it's never wrong, I'm always going to have fun. And if I don't play the game as intended, no one's gonna throw a big D20 and crush me underneath it.
Whistle from the sidelines. Yes, and
yeah.
I also really like games that have a fixed or a set direction. So we've got The Time We Have and 10 Candles.
Yes.
Because it's not restrictive in how you tell the story. It lets everyone know and lets everyone get on the same page immediately. Okay, we know what direction we're going. So then we can put all of our creativity and all of our attention into the interactions, the storytelling, the how, rather than kind of one thing that I find really hard to role play is mystery. Because if I'm trying to solve a puzzle and make it interesting, I find that a really hard kind of circle to square.
Yeah. Really, it's a really hard dynamic because I'm the same. Whenever I come up with riddles for puzzles, and I'm like, no one's gonna get this, and everyone gets it immediately. Like, damn, I'm trying to be too smart for my own good, or like, or it's or it's the other end, and people go, I have no idea. I'm just going like, say shadow, just say shadow, and the door's open. Come on.
Or if you're on the other side, if you're the player, and you're like, I'm sitting here, and the entire story is stagnant until I can do this, or
But like again, why I like Blades in the Dark, and I think you'd agree on that, is that you do the big swings and then you react to it because you are competent criminals, right? It's not like, oh, can I do this? It's like you do it because you know you're great, and then it's about everything else around you sort of morphs that world. So I'm always a big fan of that, and I think sometimes it takes a little rewiring of your brain just to be like, I could do this, I guess. Like, what do you want to do in this moment? Well, I'm a cool, confident person. Okay, but I'm not very good at that. Is that's okay. That's all right. You think you can still do it. You're just not as good as you think you are, So big fan of that. Obviously, that's not what we're talking about here today, Camille. Maybe another time we could talk about this. But what are we talking about today for DM's Book Club? What is our topic of choice?
So this is it's a 5e module, which I bought a long time ago. And as the title would suggest, I didn't get round to reading it for a long time. And so I really thank you for asking me to come on this show and asking me what I wanted to read for the show. Because today we're talking about Adventures in ADHD.
Heck yeah.
A book very close to my heart.
I love it. This is now, it gives you slight homework where it's a soft deadline. So if you didn't read all of it, that's okay. But you're like, no, I will read all this. Yes, Adventures in AD&D, 5th edition module by Awfully Queer Heroes, who admittedly I'd recognised their podcast logo around, but I've never listened to any of their stuff. So I don't know if you could give a bit of context to who they were at all. Yeah,
I backed this because I saw it on socials. I can't remember exactly where. And I backed it because it's clearly made by people with, even from like the initial details that they were sharing online, it's clearly made by people with experience of ADHD.
Yes.
We'll get to that in a bit. But the Awfully Queer Heroes, all that I know of them is that they are a collective of queer neurodivergent folks who have gone from kind of AP and performance to then bringing in creating modules like this.
Yeah, that's pretty much the nail on the head, really. I don't know if the podcast itself is still going, but it is still up there for people to listen to. So I recommend checking this stuff out, because obviously it's nice to support other artists doing things. And I agree. I kind of had a quick look at the Kickstarter, and obviously I've read the PDF you very kindly sent me. And I will say this: I do not know. Currently, I'm not diagnosed if I have ADHD. Obviously, you've said that you have been. So it'll be interesting to see our views on it, because I will be honest, I found this a bit of a tough read, personally. There are bits in it that I liked, but I did struggle a little bit myself.
What did you struggle with?
Well, the main thing, I think, is that feels like there was a lot of project scope in this, like that creeping scope. There seems to be a lot for the actual adventure.
A crowd-funded project.
I know, you're absolutely right on that front. I felt there was some really cool bits and pieces, but they felt there's so much of it that if I was playing this or running this through, I would skip big swaths out of it just for time, because ultimately I was wondering who the audience was for this particular adventure module. That, like, in terms of age, is it aimed at a younger audience? Is it aimed at maybe our age or maybe older? Because I understand that the sort of is the idea of like, how do we portray kindly ADHD symptoms for entertainment but also educational value, so that we can, when we recognize these in other people, we can treat them kindly and not misjudge them or anything like that. But I'll be honest, a lot of the language it used, it felt like it was aimed at a much younger audience, which is no problem. But I then found some of the naming of the various NPCs and the town, for example. I was like, I don't know if I would be taken seriously with all the kids that I know. They'll be like, what, because I don't know if it would be taken as a joke. Whereas I feel like something like this, I'd like to take a little bit seriously. But I don't know. That's the only thing. I don't know. My level of fun might be very different to other people's levels of fun, I took
the language and the wording to be kind of them trying to make it as accessible as possible, because reading levels vary.
100%.
Maybe let's get into a little bit of what it is, and
Definitely.
then we can, talk about how we feel about it.
Absolutely.
So this is it's a standalone module adventure for a party of level 5 to 6 characters. I'm not a big pre-written module girly. The only time that I've ever run a pre-written module is when I've been paid to do it.
Yes.
But there is a lot in here that I really like, and a lot that I might pilfer in terms of setting and elements
100%.
and stuff like that. But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
This is set in, and I quote, the sometimes near yet still impossibly far domain of Lotstoodoo, where things are constantly misplaced, rearranged, reimagined, or downright left to their own magically unregulated existence. So this is an entire Fey realm formed from the unfinished thoughts and tasks of an archfey. And if you thought Lotstoodoo was a shoehorned pun, get ready for more ADHD puns. Strap in.
Yeah, as someone who does not like puns, I instantly was like, "Oh no, okay." But again, that is a personal taste thing than anything else. Because at least I knew where we were at all times. Like, yep, we're in Lotstoodoo and Yowza, the town that we with always with an exclamation point. So I always felt like, yes, you would just shout Yowza whenever ever in a conversation.
And the archfey Faux Iromim, which makes more sense written down because Iromim is memory backwards. So
See, I did
Lord
not get that
Memory.
at all. I was like, what a weird... I was like, what is this? And so then we were talking about puzzles before. I was just there going like, I just think they've just gone, cool, that's a cool name. So I didn't even think it was memory backwards. That's so funny.
And their kind of attendant, assistant, confidant, Mr. AD Doodle.
Yes.
So again, thing is, I'm going to say up top, you don't like puns, I don't like Fey.
Great. Perfect. Yeah, I agree.
I like the idea of these kind of magical beings whose sense of morality and whose sense of reality is so wildly different from us mortals. That's a cool concept. How they end up being in D&D is your annoying friend who's into riddles. And the type of people who say, technically right is the best sort of right. No, it's not. It's the least meaningful sort of right. Despite my dislike of Fey, I do like some of the details that kind of bring the world to life and really make it clear that this is written by people who are A, queer, B, have ADHD. Like, for example, in the character description of Lord Iromim, they are a shapeshifter whose form and fashion morph with their moods and whims. They created this entire Fey realm through their unfinished business. And, quote, they have an air of Tilda Swinton about them.
I instantly saw that and I was like, okay, I know exactly who this person is now. Yeah, because instantly I was like, yeah, Tilda Swinton could make all those things work. So,
but then the hardest challenge to the DM, in my opinion, from this entire module is in the last line of the description for Mr. AD Doodle, which is, he has David Bowie's eyes and quite a bit of Robin Williams' demeanor. So me as the DM running this game has to imitate one of the most distinctive performers of all time.
yes. Yeah, well, two, technically.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think Tilda Swinton is probably slightly easier to do than Robin Williams.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But I have to be two of the greatest actors of all time. Easy.
Khalil, why is it so hard? No, I agree. I think it's, again, it feels like that sort of thing where it's written as like, here's a cultural touchstone for you, the person. But again, depending on your audience, they might not remember Robin Williams, which is a very sad case if that is the case, or they might not know who Tilda Swinton is and stuff like that. So I maybe, again, my suggestion for improvement would be like to maybe have a collection of people you could pull from if you like celebrities. I mean, again, it doesn't surprise me that there are a couple of cultural references throughout, because that's exactly what I do in my games. I'm like, I'll describe and take some time. I'm like, it's a bit like Robin Williams if he was crossed with David Bowie, and everyone goes, "Oh, yeah, of course." Yeah.
I think that the more I think about it and the more I read through my notes, I think, and this is something that we're all guilty of sometimes, I think they wrote it for them and their friends.
Which I think is totally fair. I think because they ran it through on their show, like as to playtest and stuff like that. And I think that's great. I think that's...
see, me as a hack and a fraud didn't look that up.
Oh no, I think no. I think it's mentioned in the acknowledgements, but I didn't look up if that was the true case. And so yes, you can listen to them going through it on their various podcasts. But I agree. It feels like these are notes that I can give it to somebody else and they can run it, as a sort of friends thing, and then they just put it together. And now, again, not saying that's a bad thing, but I would struggle with these notes personally because again, I actually, compared to yourself, I do prefer the pre-written stuff, but mostly because then I can go, okay, that's the base outline, and everything else I can sort of improv around. Whereas if it's full improv, I just get to a point where I go, well, we're going this way, and I'm going to keep going, and someone will stop me. Nope. Okay.
At some point, I'll know if this is the right direction.
And so they'll be like, wow, how did we get here? And I'm just like going because we didn't have the safety rails. We didn't have the safety rails of the adventure, and that's how we got here,
Ain't no fun like organised fun.
Heck yeah. I'm a big fan of that.
But getting into the little kind of the story and world details that that really endeared me to this.
Yes.
The adventure starts with a fun iteration on the classic Fey trick. Mr. ADHD asks the party, "May I have your attention, please?" And then, bam, your attention is gone. He has your attention. And essentially gives all your characters ADHD. Mm-hmm. And as we said, as you mentioned right at the top, this module, and this is something that they acknowledge in the book, really requires what they call a good-natured approach.
Yes.
And what I would describe as a kind of a combination of sensitive and lighthearted and respectfully investigative or sharing approach.
Yes, 100%.
Rather than flanderizing neurodivergent characters, which I think if you're buying this book, you're probably already predisposed to not do that. So you're probably good.
Agreed.
But it's good that they put that in the beginning.
Hey, you got to say the quiet part out loud, haven't you?
Yeah,
That's
right.
The thing. Yeah.
So it turns out that Lord Iromim has wandered off, and in their absence, Mr. ADHD needs to borrow the magical substance and energy of your attention to keep Lotstoodoo from falling apart and kind of imploding. And then if you can help to either stabilize the realm or hasten its disintegration, then you might be able to get your attention back. If only there was a quest I could go on to get my attention back.
But I think as a premise, that's
to
a
the
great...
pharmacy.
Yeah, yes, true. I mean, that would be just half a session where we all sort of talk very deeply about it and a rough diagnosis from a goblin behind the counter, I think. But I agree. I feel like the premise, I think it's good. And I think the only thing I would say is like, yeah, I agree with you about the Fae. I do think they're overused quite a bit nowadays because it's like, what did it? It's a Fae. And so I do find the stuff in it, because like I said, there's a lot of stuff about lots to do and all that sort of thing. But I do wonder would it have been, again, in my head, would I have liked to have seen some of these characters that we'll see, the NPCs, without them not being outlandish, but they're just, regular people in the town that you help on like side quests or something like that. And it's, it's not like, oh, we go fight the monster, but it's like, oh, I'm really struggling with time. Maybe it's not heroic. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe it has to be put in this extraordinary setting to make you feel like, oh, we are helping these people. You know what I mean? I just feel like, I don't know.
I think part of it is that almost all the NPCs are meant to be embodiments of facets of ADHD. And so, there is, someone who is scared of unmasking a masked ball.
Yes.
Or there's a swarm of bees that's always like, what's buzzing? And those little details, like the what's buzzing thing got me, because the sensory processing part of ADHD is strong in me. And so I'm always hearing that, the whine of a TV in the distance or whatever. I think making it too normal would just make it kind of a bit of a real life simulator. Whereas taking it entirely into the realm of metaphor, which the Fey realm kind of does very well as a setting, allows you to, and I think the distance of fantasticalness as well allows people to drop some of their baggage at the transition into the Fey realm, And so they can engage more nakedly, more openly, more immediately with concepts, because it's like, oh, it's not real, it's just Fey. But you're still engaging with those real concepts.
I like that. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it like that myself. So yeah, instantly it's like, oh yeah, this is maybe a more accessible way, which then you could be like, when you go back to real life, she says quotation marks, away from the table, you're like, you can see the parallels and making it, again, I guess my worry was that if it becomes too humorous, but actually if we're approaching this whole module with that good humor of like going, I see what you did there. Okay, then it's not treating it as a dramatic thing. I guess I was worried it might be punching down in some places, but maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just taking a critique of it.
Punching down implies that you're in a kind of in-group, out-group situation. Whereas this is kind of within community humor. And
yes,
let me tell you, there are things about ADHD that are incredibly frustrating. There are things about living with ADHD that are very funny.
Very.
Like, sometimes it's just ridiculous and you just need to laugh. And so the kind of the absurdity of some bits of real life translate very well into turning them up to 11 in a Fey realm.
One of the examples that spoke out to me specifically was this idea of the wandering sort of blank page. We've all been that with a deadline, and you just see it sort of thing. So I enjoyed that particular encounter because that felt to be very Fey realm like. Again, it's like that sort of like, as you said, sort of the encounter become real and obviously a fighting thing. And like, how do you defeat this? And a lot of the encounters aren't necessarily through combat or anything like it. It suggests social ways or methods which are unusual. So there was like the Mr. Pomodoro timer one as well, which, to be fair, I did laugh about that because I do use that. It's very helpful, just so I can get up and stand up from my desk and not hyperfixate.
See, I've been procrastinating starting Pomodoro.
Oh, you should do it. All it does is makes me stand up away from my desk. So that's all I care for. And it suggests ways of dealing with it. But I guess what I do find interesting with quite a few of the encounters is that what do you do if you aren't able to help the NPCs? And not like the devastating, but it's just like, oh, you didn't help them. That's pretty sad. And they'll be like some sort of failure mechanics, but it's not an outright failure necessarily, but it still has an impact on you, the players, saying that there are other ways to help people than maybe what you were trying to do. And it's okay that you weren't successful this time, and you can always come back again later on. Because I think sometimes, just talking about your sort of video game role-playing experiences, sometimes you're like, well, that's shut off that whole path to me now, and I can't...
Yep, quest failed.
Yep, done.
Yep,
yeah,
that entire tree is gone.
Yep, gone. I always remember the first Dragon Age where I got to a town and like clearly one of the NPC like companions, they were in a cage, and I was like, all right, I will rescue you. I've talked to you. You seem cool. I'll go rescue you, but I have to go to do this mission first. And after that mission, the whole town got swarmed and they died. And I felt so guilty that I stopped playing the game because I just assumed like, oh, well, I'm going to do this mission. I didn't have that whole like, are you sure you haven't got anything to complete? Yeah.
Also, because in video games, so often you have that kind of reality breaking thing where it's like there is this urgent world threat that you need to address, but you can collect as many flowers and mushrooms as you want along the way.
Have some flags.
All of the fetch quests and all of the side missions you want, the big evil demon will still be there, which always kind of blew my mind a little bit.
It has to be similar here as well, because obviously there's a load of these sort of little quests. So as you said, we get to Yowza in Lotstoodoo, and this town is sort of falling apart. And the way we get to the next area, sort of the final area with Mr. AD, is to get these medallions, these different coloured medallions. But
the 5 medallions of getting things done, which
I thought was great. I did quite like that. You start off by doing like 3 sort of little side quests, and then you start to accumulate them by helping other people out. And I guess for me, I was like, I feel like I need more in terms of other than little side quests, which I think separately, it's what you were talking about before about like pulling things out and putting them into other adventures. I can see a couple of these side quests going like, okay, whilst they're doing that, this is also happening at the same time. If I was facing possibly 8 or more of these little side quest things to get these medallions, I would turn off immediately. I don't know if I have that.
If I were to run this, I would take out what Fiona's talking about is that the book suggests that the players do 3 of these helping people side quests, and then they find out about the 5 amulets.
Yeah.
I would just take out those first 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
They arrive, and the Lawmaster of Yowza is like, help.
Hey,
This is how you can help. Get these 5 amulets by doing 5 things. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I think, and it feels strange to have a story made of side quests.
yes, agreed.
So there is a beginning and an end, and the middle is all bits. It's like a tapas sandwich.
Because there are suggestions of like which ones to do to get the medallions. So I would just put those as the main ones and then have a couple of other ones as like suggested side ones if people didn't want to go on these different ones. But yeah, because it's sort of like in I say sporadic order. I think there's 20 of them, of these little quests. I would definitely be like, hey, these 3 or 4, they're key, and then you could pick any one at random to be the one for the final medallion as well. And maybe I'd even be crueler and say not 5 medallions, but 3 medallions if I was on a bit of a tight time.
Well, that's the great thing about being a GM. You can
cut them out.
You take the resource that you're given, the big hedge that you're given with this book, and topiary it into what works for your table and your needs. I mean, kind of appropriately, the slightly kind of all over the place nature of the story and the setting are quite ADHD. And the book is full of little bits of like side text and stuff, which again, pulling your attention around. It's almost kind of thematic. Hilariously, another very ADHD thing about the book is that in the intro, they mention an appendix of resources to help people understand ADHD and other neurodivergencies. Yes. But in typical ADHD fashion, I think they forgot to put it in.
I know. I was gutted. I was looking forward to seeing that.
I was gutted, and then I laughed.
Yeah. To be fair, like, this is so interesting. Yeah, no, I agree. I was looking forward because that, again, as someone who doesn't experience it that often, I was like, well, it'd be nice to know so that can I portray these characters well, and for other people to see it, and make sure that my table is also being kind to themselves and portraying, especially if they're being given certain symptoms, like this is a symptom table that has, make sure they're not just like, oh, I'm just going to do this thing constantly, and it's like, well, you can like tailor it to your own things. But yeah, I was a bit like, oh, that's a shame. But again, I could look it up myself. But if this was a module for, say, a younger audience, perhaps with maybe teenagers or younger, it would be nice to have that at the back.
That'd be very valuable.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the table of ADHD symptoms. Yeah, there are a couple of interesting tables. There's a D20 table of ADHD symptoms. So when your attention gets stolen, each character rolls 3 D20s, and you get 3 of these symptoms. And they are variously from across different kind of areas of ADHD experience, because as with all neurodivergent conditions, it's not one thing. It's a kind of big blurry area of a hyper volume that is cognition. There's also a table of distractions.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah,
if the players try to wander off, you can roll on the distraction table, and there will be something that kind of distracts them back to the quest. And there is also a table of the Archface to-do list when you actually get to Lotstoodoo.
I guess my question to you, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here, is that they are suggested sort of role-play things, the symptoms table. Having such symptoms, like, for example, we have in like Call of Cthulhu stuff, obviously they have the sanity stuff, and obviously it has its own issues with like using sanity as a mechanic in the game. And again, not trying to sort of like support that sort of thing. But I wondered here, because there's so much of it, I wondered if it could be beneficial to have some sort of mechanic so that you don't forget that you have these things. But maybe that's all part of the ADHD-ness of it all, I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I think that, if I'm putting myself in the minds of the designers here,
yes,
I would assume that they probably had this conversation and they probably said, we don't want to make the characters weaker or impeded for having, ADHD. And so keeping it as role play kind of takes that contentious bit out. But there are some mechanical things when you get into the subclasses that are introduced in this book.
Right, yeah.
So, for example, with the Barbarian, you have the Path of the Wrathful, which is an even blinder rage. the Bard is the College of Flighting, so distraction through insults. You've got the Despair Domain Cleric, that's a really interesting mechanical one, because through their despair, in every turn in combat, they get progressively deeper into despair.
Yeah.
And they get kind of progressive bonuses and penalties, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So you get both the bonus and the penalty for whatever stage of despair you're at. And there's like the Artificer, Polymath, who has kind of unstable inventions. The Daredevil Rogue with their erratic impulsiveness. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I think one of my favorites was the Wizard School of the Cracked Veil. So they empower their own spellcasting through breaking their own concentration, which for me was the most ADHD of them all.
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is the thing. I really thought the subclasses were like the most interesting part about this thing.
Yeah,
like
they're fun.
Yeah, and I was like, would I run this adventure and also have them play as subclasses? I just felt like maybe that's just too overwhelming. Whereas here, I could take the subclasses again out of the book and say like, hey, here are these subclasses. If you would like to play with them for a few sessions, we absolutely can do. But, I think seeing these subclasses in a quote unquote regular D&D session, I think would be maybe for me a lot more interesting, perhaps. I don't know if I could do.
Well, if you want to play a character with ADHD, then if you want to mechanically reflect that as well as through roleplay, then maybe one of these subclasses is a great place to start.
Yes, exactly.
Because it gives you a mechanical basis for it, but it's not, disabling your character.
Yes, I agree.
It just becomes a core facet of how they interact with the world, which is very much how neurodivergence works. It's really integral to your very relationship with the entire world.
Yeah, because especially for me, I really like the Bard one because it has a subclass feature called Gallows Humor, which I was like, if that's not everyone I've met about ADHD. But yeah, I just thought the subclass was so interesting, and I felt, again, because obviously it's after the adventure, maybe buried away a little bit, and I was like, this is the sort of stuff I would have been interested to see that play out in a sort of just an adventure that was minus all the other stuff on it. But I agree. I think I don't know if I would play them all like you're these and you're going to Lotstoodoo and you're doing this, because I think that's maybe just muddies the waters quite a bit in terms of like trying to get out like what is it like to play a character with ADHD, or is it, and then to interact with people who have ADHD. I don't know. I just felt it was just a lot to go on just up top. But yeah, I agree with you. I would take these subclasses and be like, let's try these out in a different setting.
ADHD has an interesting relationship, a kind of duality of relationship with the concept of a lot. Sometimes a lot is too much and sometimes a lot is just right. Depending on kind of what frame of mind one is in at a certain time, or how one experiences one's own ADHD. Sometimes the kind of like, okay, I need all these options and I need this. I want to try this. I want to try this. I want to try this. Oh, what about that? Blah, blah, blah. Sometimes that is the driving force.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can kind of, you can rev the engine too hard.
Yes.
And it overheats. I can see how kind of plucking bits out of this could give each of them time to breathe,
giving it time to like to just develop on its own, rather than just like in this book where it feels very compacted. Like you said, a community Kickstarter project, but like just be able to be like, hey, where can it go? Can we develop more of them? And different subclasses of like a fighter or the crafter or any of that. Like do we want to go? Can we mix and match? Perhaps. I guess you would be able to. Depending on what levels you take, you could have like a couple levels in the fighter and then the barbarian, and see how that stacks and how those sort of things work together using these subclasses.
Repetition and blind rage.
Yeah.
It's funny that the fighter subclass is the recurrence master, who basically has mastered one attack and just does that. And so it's about kind of the repetitiveness of kind of that giving structure to life. And it's just funny that fighter gets a bit of a reputation for being the kind of most simple, boring class.
Yeah.
And so the fact that their subclass in this book is someone who does one attack.
Yeah. It kind of is
Really
a comment
well.
on it as well. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's good.
The fighter's fighter.
I know what I'm doing, and that's it. I just do one job. So I agree with that. I feel that myself. You get all these 5 medallions, and then you open the portal into Lotstoodoo, this Fey realm where Mr. AD Hoptidoodle is sort of trying their best to keep as you said, the Archfey has just wandered off left, and so the world is now falling apart. And you then have, I feel like, round 2 of side missions before you have sort of this realization that Mr. AD Hoptid is the new Lord Fey of the realm, that they have been left this realm. And I honestly, I thought the ending was great. I did not see that coming, I'll be honest. I thought the Fey would turn back and be like, oh, thanks, everyone, that's A-okay. But actually having kind of almost like a bittersweet ending of realizing like, oh God, this is all my fault, I'm not ready. But then realizing that, well, you're not broken, you're not wrong, you're just doing a different way of processing things. I thought, wow, that's such a really cool message to have at the end. I just wish it hadn't been, personally, underscored by more of these side missions. I wondered if it could have been, not, again, do I want it to be a big combat? No, because that's not what the vibe of this is. But I just wondered if it should be on like maybe timers or clocks, very, Blades in the Dark, where you had to do things rather than like the side quest. And there's, what could we do to help and reassure this person that isn't like, I'm going to go tackle whatever's in the bedroom that says don't make your bed, or the statues, let's rescue the statues. I just felt like I would have liked to have something that was a bit more coherent at the end, just to really hammer home that message of like, hey, it's okay, it is a big responsibility, we get it.
Yeah, if you had something between the side quests and the conclusion. It was something that I felt when I was reading through a lot of the side quests and the little kind of encounters and stuff. I was like, okay, I recognize exactly what facet of life experience they are talking about there.
Yes.
And so I can see how it could be very cathartic for people to go, to play, like a campaign of D&D and go about solving the problem. It's because, it's a power fantasy. It's like, okay, I can go in, I can solve this problem that I have in real life.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I do agree that there needs to be something that funnels that into the conclusion. But I do agree that it's a really nice way to end it, because you don't get rid of ADHD.
Yeah.
Like, you can work with it and, discover its strengths and find ways to like make the more difficult parts work better with the world and stuff like that. But this isn't a story that you can do X, Y, and Z and then make everything go back to normal. And that's refreshing, especially because in so much of storytelling across all sorts of media, especially your kind of, think of like superhero films or whatever. It's always, okay, something has happened to disrupt the status quo. We need to restore the status quo and the order. We need to get things back to normal. And honestly, normal was invented by boring people to make interesting people feel bad.
Yeah. I feel that.
So embracing the difference and the uniqueness, I think, is a really, it's a lovely, powerful way to end it.
Yeah, it sort of speaks to that hero's journey of like, they're always going to be changed. And here it's to say for the better, and like to go on this journey and learn stuff about themselves through this lens of the Fey realm. And like, hey, we've learned that ADHD comes in all shapes and sizes, and your characters have the sort of degrees of it. If they have a subclass, obviously they can lean into it and use those powers for good. They're not a hindrance. And then being able to help these folks realize, realizing that like these problems, they seem very big, but actually we can all tackle them together. It's not the end of the world, even though the end of the world is happening in the end of the adventure. So yeah, I think there's a lot to it.
There was a wider lesson to learn from that.
I don't know. There's no appendix, Khalil. That's the problem. I don't have this spark notes at the end, Was there any particular bit of the adventure that you were like, yes, I would definitely want to pull this in, or the book in general, I'd definitely want to pull this into a different game that you were running or take inspiration from?
The beginning and the end.
None of the middle.
Not necessarily none of the middle, but I think the bits that resonated with me the most are the "May I have your attention, please?"
Yes.
And the real ADHD was inside us all along. And there are some pretty cool encounters along the way that, I think could be, woven together and stuff. Thing is, like I said, I'm not someone who traditionally runs a lot of pre-written modules. And so for me, I see this less as a formula for a thing and more as a basket full of ingredients.
Things to take and leave as you want to make the perfect thing for you.
I think that might be partly why I didn't immediately clock, until you mentioned it, the narrative rhythm issues. Because I wasn't reading it like that. I wasn't reading it being like, okay, I'm going to run this for a group of players and they're going to go through this whole adventure. I was reading it as like, oh, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool.
Yeah.
Oh, don't quite get that. Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, that's exactly how I do adventures as well. And that's what we always encourage on DM's Book Club, is to take what you want us to play. I just think as a narrative source, reading it through, I had to have a couple of goes at it and go, okay, let's do 2 pages and we'll see where we get to. And I'm like, okay, that is interesting. Okay, we'll keep going. So so I think it's sometimes the denseness and just being like, what's the purpose of this? But again, coming to it again after because I had read it through, and then I read it through again a couple of days later. I was like, okay, I now get various parts of it, and whilst I do think it has its weaknesses, I do think it's an interesting project to see, and it's unlike anything else I've read, which is not a negative thing. I do want to say that I was very surprised by it, because I didn't know what to expect when you sent it to me, and then seeing the adventure and the subclasses and magic items and stats for monsters
and spells
extra stretch goals for the spells.
Special mention to Fadar.
Yeah, Fadar's great.
Allows you to detect Fey.
So there must be one here somewhere. Because I assume it's still available to purchase somewhere on the maybe Awfully Queer Heroes site. I'll make sure I put a link in the show notes. If I was
professional, I would have looked that up in advance.
Oh, don't. Hey, me too. But I'll put a link to where you can find out all about it and stuff like that, because I do think it's an interesting read. And I think it's that sort of thing. If you wanted to explore a topic that is a part of someone's lived experience, maybe it's a good way to have a look at it. And how would you do that lived experience in a similar way? I think our only caveat was please put an appendix at the end with some resources to help those who don't know what it's like to live with that sort of stuff.
It's very clear that it comes from the heart and from
100%.
A place of ADHD and queerness.
Yes,
and so maybe, they were so wrapped up in the kind of the story and the making the thing that they forgot, oh wait, not everyone is going to instinctively get what we're talking about.
Yes, absolutely. Just as a way to let other people in, and is that sort of being accessible, whilst also having again, you said as this community is I could recognizes game, right? But there'll be some me going yes, I recognize this, I guess I just want to make sure, am I okay? Which of course it is okay, because obviously they want people to be playing these games and learning about these things. But yeah, I think that's it. Just a little bit of tweaking, just a little bit to be make sure those gates are open and anyone could play any of these cool characters and play parts of the story or it in its entirety. So yeah,
that would take it from a kind of by us for us thing to a thing that opens the doors to everyone.
Yeah,
which would be cool.
Oh, Khalil, thank you so much. We've run out of time very quickly on talking about this amazing topic that you brought us. Thank you so much. Where can people find you if you're on the internet? Is there anything you'd like to plug before we sign off for this episode?
Well, you can find me on Blue Sky at Dr. Talks a Lot. That's Dr. Talks a Lot. If you want to watch me playing games, then I can often be found on Science and Sorcery. We're just coming out of a little hiatus where we've been rejigging our production processes and stuff like that. I also do occasional games with people like Euphoria and Who Hurt You. Hopefully RP Geeks at some point again. It'd be lovely to. I haven't done that in a long time.
I see. This is you come onto my show to ask about RP Geeks. I knew it, Khalil. No.
And if you like the sound of my voice, then you can catch me hosting the Natural History Museum's podcasts, Our Broken Planet and Wild Crimes, which are kind of connecting naturey, sciencey stuff to socially human-y stuff in interesting ways.
Amazing. Oh, thank you so much. It's been a delight to have you on. I'm sure we'll have you back on again if time allows. I know you are a very busy person.
Oh, always happy to chat with you and about games. So it's great.
Win, 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 win. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.